Hey everyone, this is Sarah. Today in my demo, I'm going to walk you through the Rocket Elevators admin app. It's a full stack MERN project for managing agents and transactions. It has secure session management and a modern UI with reporting. First, we're going to start here on the login page. So if I enter some invalid credentials, it's going to go ahead and give me a red alert stating that incorrect password here. However, if I enter the correct password and login information, I get a green successful login banner there, and then that forwards us here to the admin portal. We also save a session token as a cookie, so I don't have to log in again. If I choose to, I could log out here, but we'll test that later when I get into some of the session settings. Over here on the left, you can see that we're setting the alert state here for those. We're handling the login for when we submit and when we get a post to our login auth. I set some things here to show some user-friendly errors, just so they don't sound like they're coming from the computer, and just telling the user to log in. This all handles the form, the validation, the alerts, and is a toast here when the user is logged out with no session. Next up here on the nav bar, this is where we added some of the logic to set the first name. So that just comes from the user ID there. And then I also added the logout handler here. So that just clears that cookie and then it'll redirect you back to the login. So we can go ahead and show that if you don't have a cookie, you're automatically logged out. On this page, we are going to look over at the protected route here. That's just carrying that cookie throughout, and then it's verifying with the backend that we have a valid token. So the next part about what I want to talk about is the backend. So when I log in, the front end is going to send a post session request to the auth route, and the route is going to check the user credentials against the user model. And then if it's valid, it's going to generate a UUID here. So that's going to wrap it in a JWT and it's going to save it in the sessions model. That session has a expiration of 24 hours in MongoDB, and that is right here. And then our get for validate token, that checks if the session exists, and then it returns the user info if it's valid. And here is the middleware for some of that token validation on the protected routes. On the topic of session management, the protected route here, it looks for a session cookie, and then if no token is found, you'll be redirected to a login. If the token does exist, it hits that validate token API and it verifies it before it loads the page. And then our middleware, it intercepts every request. So if the token exists in the session collection, it returns valid along with the user's information. On the home page here, you can see that it displays a grid of cards. We have agents, transactions, and then reporting. When we click one of those cards, it goes to the corresponding component. On the left-hand side here, I want to show you the main.jsx that creates and keeps all of those elements. So you can see login error in the home page here at the top, and then all of our protected routes. So that's anything that has user agent information, transaction information, and reporting. Not included in that are things like login, which everybody should be able to access to be able to get a token and be granted access to some of this protected data. And then here in server.js, you can see where we have the middleware that enforces a session check on every one of these pages. Next up, we're going to navigate to the agents page. This is going to show us a table of all available agents that we created. View them, edit them, we can also delete them. So for each action that we do, we're going to have a confirmation model that appears, and it'll show us that it's successful after it has been created. So we'll go ahead and go in here and create an agent real quick so we can see how that works. We're going to do first and last name, and assign them a region. Okay, we'll click create agent. You can see there that the agent is created successfully. We can either wait 5 seconds for this to go away, or you can exit out of it. And you can see here Greg Jones is created. We can go ahead and edit this record. When we edit the record, we do get that confirmation modal that pops up. If we cancel it, it doesn't get updated. If we confirm it, it does get updated successfully. I'll actually go back in there and change the fees so you can see the live update. So you see now that $200 has been updated. At this same token, I can go ahead and delete Greg, and it'll ask for a delete confirmation. I'll delete the record. You can see that it was deleted successfully. I want to go into the back end here and just kind of talk through some of the actions happening on the record. So you can see here on the record list where we fetch all of the agents. We are checking the token there to make sure that you are logged in and your session hasn't expired. There's a couple different alert states here that tie into the modals. And then also we handle delete here. And then we use a post to create the new record, and to update the record, we use a patch. Some more of that information here. Fetching the agent to be able to edit them, and then I wanted to show where we're able to the post and the patch that I just mentioned for creating and updating an agent. Anyway, so that is what I wanted to show for the agent page so far. On the back end, our CRUD logic is here on record.js under our routes. So you can see where we're using a get for all of the agents, and we're also getting them by ID. We're creating a new agent here, and then validating some of those required parameters as well. Also, in here is the update and then the delete. So the patch and the delete are here as well. Next, we'll take a look at our transactions page under transaction management here. So this page has two parts. The first part here is where you can add a transaction in the dollar amount, and you can select the agent. So for example, I'll go ahead and put $200 and assign it to Serena. You can see there the agent ID is also included. We'll click submit. We also get a confirmation model on this. So are you sure you want to submit this transaction? We'll confirm it. And I added a toast here for the success for this transactions page. Since it doesn't really navigate away from this page, it just updates on demand. So I felt that that fit more with having a smooth UI here and keeping it kind of dynamic. So as you can see here, the date that the transaction was added, sorted by date. I did a lot of them today, so you can't actually see how well it sorts by most recent, but if we do it tomorrow, you'll see. And then the amount, and then also the agent here as well. So here on the front end code, you can see the transaction list .jsx, and I added some logic here around just displaying these amounts in currency. I know that wasn't really required, but it looks better, and I feel like it's easier to read and figure out what kind of data we're working with here. I did add some logic around if an agent gets deleted, that we display inactive agent here instead of keeping their original name. That way we can still track the data, and I think that's really important, especially for the reporting tab, where we're still pulling in those numbers, and we need to be able to at least associate to an inactive agent. Here we have the transaction form. This also handles some of the table and form logic and validation there as well. So we are confirming and sending the transaction to the back end within this, handling the form submission and validation, And then I also included, like I said, some of the toast logic here as well. We do have logic around, only being able to insert a numeric value that's a positive number, not allowing E to be submitted here in this form as well. We'll go over to the back end here. You can see our model here for transactions, and then on our transaction route is right here where we're hosting all of the get and post logic around these. So the get logic is for the transaction data API, returning the last 10 transactions, and then it also returns the list of agents that are active in the database. For the post, that's saving the new transaction with the timestamp, and it's validating that the amount is positive and that the agent ID exists. So we're not trying to post onto an agent that no longer exists. The next thing I want to talk about is some of the UX and styling here. So we obviously used cards, tables, modals, and some toasts and alerts. It makes everything super responsive. The back end is returning the JSON for everything. So it's getting those successes, the errors, the validation, and then it's able to display those as the alerts that we just spoke about. Yeah, that just makes it really fast and functional. And then the last part is the bonus part I want to talk about. That's just the reporting around the transaction amounts by agent and then the daily transaction totals for the last 14 days. So you can see here that we're pulling these dollar amounts correctly for everybody. The unknown values here, so we can track those as well. And then same here with the daily transaction totals. You can kind of peek into each of these and see what was the total for the day. And then, of course, just some styling around that as well. And then on the back end of that, we can go ahead and we can look into the reports. So the routes here, and then the pages as well. So in here, we're just mapping the agent IDs to their names and getting those daily totals, the other values as well. And then here is where some of the logic exists for fetching the report data, updating these bar and line graphs, also mapping them to the correct data as well. Add some breadcrumbs here at the top just to make it easier to navigate around and not have to always go backwards. Yep, that's my app. It's secure, relatively responsive, pretty user friendly, and then we've got all the session tokens, alerts, and confirmations. So thanks for joining. I'll see you next time.